this sounds so deep, you know, like you, again, sorry, I have problems with you today. Like, if I am not ready to listen to you, then I just fetishize you into my enemy. But I should try to understand your side of the story, no? And then I will see that you also, like me, you have your fears, your dreams, your anxieties, and all of a sudden I will see you are not simply an enemy, you know, but a tragic person caught in its finitude, its dreams, and so on. You no longer can be my enemy. My answer to this is, haha. I mean, haha, like, okay, it sounds deep, but replace the general term enemy with a concrete name. Would you say that Hitler was our enemy because we were not ready to hear his story and so on, no? I mean, or take for example, Karadzic. No, we did hear his story, no? You know what I mean. It's even written in poems and so on. This is why, okay, it probably will not be translated into Albanian for simple reasons, because it's too big. In Slovene, it will not only, you know, this novel, which is now, in the last 2 years, big hit, first in France, then in Germany, England, Jonathan Littell, no, it's not Little, it's Littell, it's a French word, Les Bienveillants, the kindly ones, it's a clumsy translation into English. It got the prix, I don't know which one, Goncourt or whatever in France. It's an incredible novel, 950 pages, a memoirs, of course faked, written as a novel, of a mid-level Nazi executioner, the one who participated in the Holocaust. And it does precisely this. It tells you his side of the story. You see an ordinary guy with his dreams, all the shit, his dreams, his whatever you want, and that's the monstrosity. The monstrosity is not they were inhuman. The monstrosity is how human they remained. And the only conclusion I see from this is to abandon this topic of let's understand each other and so on, no? And to admit that, of course we should, but in a more radical sense, namely in the sense that about ourselves. In other words, the ideological myths, narratives we are constructing to provide a meaningful framework for our experience of our lives. They are fundamentally lies. They are the screen we construct to allow us to do the horrors we are doing in reality without having to confront them. Like, you do horrible things, you kill, blah, blah. The function of the poet is to provide the screen which makes you possible to do it. Now let me go a step further. Here, I think, one step more. This does not mean that I am against mutual understanding, but, and many people thought I was crazy, but I'm more and more convinced that I am right. In what? Whenever some multiculturalist comes to you and it is, you know, racist, arrogant, oh, how interesting your culture, tell me about your stories, blah, blah. This doesn't work. This is the mutual lie. Usually, even, what I will do then is to tell you a story which, more than my story, will be something like, I will try to guess what you want to see in me and then stage for you that. Maybe you know this story, but it's a true anecdote from the history of anthropology, which I think is the best formula of how the West ideologically exploited us during the war in the 90s. How did we function for them? It's maybe you know it, I'm sorry if I repeat myself, it's a wonderful story. About, again, I read it in some book on the history of anthropology, so it's, if the book didn't lie, reality. Somewhere, I think it's New Guinea, that, it happened about 100, even more years ago. There was a rumor that some tribe in the middle, out of touch with civilization, that they have some terrible, horrifying dances of death. They paint themselves like that figure with dark masks and dance. So an anthropological expedition went there, finally arrived at that tribe, and explain to them through some confused language sign, but somehow they got it, that they want to see this dance, no? And, okay, they went to sleep. Next day, the people, the tribe members, did perform exactly the dance they wanted, no? They went home, satisfied, they wrote a report, the wild nature, primitives, blah, blah. Everything okay, except for one small detail. A couple of years later, another group, more reasonable anthropologists, visited the same tribe, really learned their language, and got the true story what happened from the other side. This so-called primitive tribe just wanted to be good hosts to their guests. And they somehow guessed that these idiots want to see some terrible dance. And as good hosts, they in a panic invented this dance, masks to be, what they thought is the original abyss was staged for them as a sign of hospitality. Now, that's my problem, and I'm not in any way anti-Serb. If anything, now you remember the majority here. You should not do to them what they were doing to you. But this is the reason Emir Kusturica is not my greatest friend, to put it as the understatement of the century. Because I claim that, for example, in his underground, he is doing exactly this for the Western gays. He stages for them. If you saw underground, what image of our Balkan do you get there? A crazy piece of the world outside history where people frankly eat, drink, kill and fuck all the time. A perpetual spiritual orgy. This is what the West wants to see in us. And he is delivering it to them. I'm against him not because he is too primitive Balkan, but because he is too westernized. He is exactly like that tribe. He is staging for the West the spectacle, what they want to see. So what is nonetheless a role, but I would have to go deeper into psychoanalytic theory, why here, but just let me give you an anecdote. Nonetheless, I'm not saying that we should be cold to each other and so on. I am tempted to say something totally crazy. I don't know how it functioned here. Maybe I'm going too fast, but in my youth experience, you know how we had the formula under Tito, and I have no nostalgia for Tito, but that's another story, this bratstvo I jedinstvo, brotherhood and unity. I claim up to a point it functioned insofar as it was based in dirty jokes, racist jokes. I think racist jokes played a great, you can imagine how I was almost lynched in an American campus when I told this, but they played a great progressive role. In what sense? Because the way I remember from my youth, for example, when I was serving the Yugoslav army, precisely because they were not racist jokes, the way I remember them from my youth in the sense of attacking each other. It was more a kind of a friendly sharing of obscenities. I remember, for example, in the army, I met a Montenegro guy, I met a Bosnian, and the story was like, I tell you a joke about me, you tell me a joke about yours. You know how in ex-Yugoslavia, each of us, nations, ethnic groups, was identified by a certain racial cliché. And I think the correct heroic thing to do was not to say, ooh, racist cliché, but to ironically fully assume it and play with it. For example, we Slovenes were and are, it always surprises me, so politically incorrect observation, to what extent clichés are usually true. That's another story. We Slovenes are supposed to be misers, people who don't like to spend money. So it's true, of course it's true. And I used it when I was in the Yugoslav army. You know what I did? Once only I invited my fellow soldiers to beer and bought them beer. And because they perceived me as a Slovene, I became a legend. A Slovene who is not a miser. It was the best investment I did. For the whole year, oh, he's a good Slovene, they were inviting me and so on.